Today, we're diving into something that's absolutely fundamental to our digital lives, the core principles of network security.
I mean, really think about that for a second. With so much of our work, our communication, our entire lives online, this question isn't just for some big IT department. It's for all of us.
And honestly, that's the best way to look at it. Your network, it's not just a bunch of connected devices, it's your fortress. And inside, you've got the treasure, your personal files, your company's secrets, all of your data. And like any real fortress, it needs a smart, layered defense to keep intruders out.
So, where do we start? Well, the first rule of any defense is simple. You gotta know your enemy. Before we even think about building walls or setting traps, we need to get inside the attacker's head and understand what they're looking for.
So let's kick things off with two words you hear all the time: vulnerability and exploit. They sound kind of similar, right? But they are two completely different things, and knowing that difference, well, that's step one to building a solid defense.
So a vulnerability is basically just a weakness. It's a flaw, a crack in the armor, an oversight. The perfect analogy is a low fence around your property. It's not the attack itself, but it's practically an open invitation for one, just sitting there waiting for someone to notice.
An exploit, on the other hand, is the action. It's the moment an attacker sees that low fence, that vulnerability, and decides to do something about it. The exploit is the actual act of climbing over that fence to get inside. So one's a potential weak spot, and the other is the active attack. Simple as that.
And these exploits, they come in all shapes and sizes. You've got phishing, which uses fake emails to trick you into giving up your info. Baiting, which is literally leaving an infected USB drive for some curious person to find. Shoulder surfing, which is exactly what it sounds like. And evil twin access points, which are rogue Wi-Fi hotspots that pretend to be legitimate just to steal your data.
All right, so now that we've got a better idea of the enemy, it's time to build. And every fortress, digital or otherwise, starts with strong physical walls. We're talking about securing the actual hardware that makes the whole network run.
You know, this might seem obvious, but it's so critical. It doesn't matter how fancy your firewall is if someone can just walk into the server room and pull the plug. Your very first layer of defense has to be a locked door. And we've got all sorts of ways to beef up those doors. We can use biometrics, fingerprint or retina scanners. We can use good old-fashioned cipher locks with a keypad or electronic badge readers. And for the really sensitive areas, you've even got these things called access vestibules or man traps that only let one person through at a time after they've been verified. But strong walls aren't the whole story. You also need eyes on those walls, right? That's where detection comes in. Things like closed-circuit television or CCTV act as your surveillance system. It's your way of keeping an eye on who's coming and going.
Okay, our physical walls are up. Now it's time to move inside and figure out who gets to go through the digital gates. This is all about identity and permission, which you could call the Gatekeeper's Challenge.
The industry standard for this is a framework called AAA. And it's awesome because it answers three really simple but fundamental questions. First, authentication. Who are you? Prove it. Second, authorization. Okay, you're in. Now what are you actually allowed to do? And third, accounting. What did you do while you were here? It's a log of everything.
Now, that authorization part is tied to a concept that is so important, the principle of least privilege. This is huge. It just means you only give people the absolute bare minimum access they need to do their job, nothing more. Why? Because if a user can't access sensitive data in the first place, they can't accidentally leak it or have it stolen from their account.
So, we've secured our hardware and we're managing our users. But what about threats that can just float right over our walls and bypass our gates completely? Yep, I'm talking about wireless networks, those invisible signals carrying our data right through the air. Securing these signals is all about encryption. And as you can see, we've come a long way. WEP, completely insecure. It's so old it can be cracked in minutes. Just don't use it. WPA was a decent improvement, but the gold standard today is WPA2. It uses really powerful encryption like AES to constantly scramble your data, making it incredibly tough for anyone to eavesdrop.
But even the best encryption isn't magic. For instance, an attacker could hit you with a de-authentication attack, which forcibly kicks you off a good network. The whole point is to frustrate you so you'll connect to their evil twin instead, a fake hotspot they control. And of course, none of this matters if you're using a password like password123.
And that right there brings us to the single most important idea we've talked about. Real security isn't about finding one perfect solution. It's not about building one super high wall or one unbreakable gate. It's about creating multiple overlapping layers of defense,
Physical, digital, wireless. So that if one of them fails, you've got another one right behind it ready to stop the threat.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Whether it's your company or just your own personal data, how strong are the walls of your digital fortress? Are you relying on just one layer? Are your devices physically secure? Is your Wi-Fi locked down? Because at the end of the day, it's your fortress, and you're the one in charge of defending it.